Wonderful.
Hey.
Welcome everybody to the second meeting of the JPOP, the Justice Project Oversight Group. And it is November 21st. And I'm so glad to see you all. We've got a great agenda today and really so much good stuff to talk about. So I'm going to just start with a land acknowledgement. And I think I mentioned, but I'll say it again. My name's Holly O'Neill, and I have the luxury and pleasure and honor of getting to be your facilitator today. So here we go. Before we begin, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Lummi, Nooksack, Samish, and Semiahmoo people who have cared for and tended this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. Thank you. All right. So here we go. We're going to start with, I'm going to go through the agenda and we'll do some introductions. And then we have some business to attend to. So hopefully we'll have a quorum by that point. But we need to approve the committee's charter and rules of procedure. That's happening today. Selection of the committee co-chairs. And then we're going to move in. The second half of our meeting is all about learning the basics of results-based accountability. And that's the framework we're going to be using for our work together in the evaluation process. And then we'll have time for just going through some next steps and sharing thoughts in general and time for public comment. So that is the plan for today. Okay. So I want to do Zoom and logistics. Thank you, Marty. So as much as possible, we request that you keep your video on and yourself muted, except when speaking. Just a reminder again, these are open public meetings, so they'll be recorded. And then after the meeting, they get posted up on the county website. So when we're in open discussion mode, it's really helpful and pretty critical if you raise your hand to be recognized to speak. And you can either do that on the screen, I'll try and catch you, but it's also very helpful if you go to the React button, which is down at the bottom of your screen, and you click on the little ampersand there, and you can just share, raise your hand there. And one of the things that we had talked about at our first meeting, which was when we're using acronyms to try and define what they mean, or if somebody's using an acronym that you're not familiar with, just say, oh, could you define that? So we can all just get on the same page. I especially want to welcome Amber Rucker and Mary Lou Stewart, who are JPOP members, and it's their first meeting. So welcome. So glad you could both be here. And appreciate the time. Okay. So other direction, I think. There we go. Introductions. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is I'm actually going to go through the list of the JPOP members and have you introduce yourself first by just saying your name and your organization and your role, or if you're here representing a certain seat, you could say what seat you're representing. And then after we've had everybody who's part of the JPOP introduce yourself, then I will ask for our guests to do so as well. So let's start with Trevor. I bet this happens to you a lot, Trevor, with your last name, Ertz. Go ahead and introduce yourself if you would, please. Trevor, you there? And you know what, everybody? Hey, now is actually a good time to go ahead and unmute yourself, because then we don't have to have that little unmute pause. Trevor, are you there? I saw you a second. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Maybe he got bumped off. So how about, let's see, Heather, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Heather. I'm with the Chuckanut Health Foundation. I'm here today as the co-chair of the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force.
Great, thank you. Stark?
Stark Follis, Whatcom County Public Defender.
Fantastic. Peter?
Hi, everybody. I'm Peter Frazier. I am co-chair with Heather of the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force. Glad to see you all here.
Thank you. Richard? Okay. Trevor, you're back. I think I lost you for a sec. Do you want to introduce yourself? No? Okay. Keep going then. Let's see. Richard's not here yet. How about Dan? Dan Hamill.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Dan Hamill, Bellingham City Council President. I'm co-chair of the Behavioral Health Committee of the task force, along with Stephen Gockley. Good afternoon.
Fantastic. Thank you. Doreen?
Hi, I'm Doreen Vargas I work for the Lummi Indian Business Council. I am the Lummi Nation representative, and I have been chairwoman of the Grandparents Committee for the Lummi Nation for the past 15 years.
Welcome. Thank you. Pamela?
Yeah. My name's Pam Kahn. I am a behavioral health clinician. I'm at City Gate Apartments, one of our supportive housing projects. And here's, I think, supportive housing subject matter expert. And she, her is my pronouns.
Thank you. Great. Miriam?
Hi, everyone. My name is Miriam Karamoko. I use they, them pronouns. I am the representative from the Whatcom Racial Equity Commission.
Great. Thank you. Jason?
Hello, Jason Corneliuson. I'm with the City of Bellingham. I'm the Strategic Initiatives Manager for Health and Human Services.
Welcome. Great. Kim? Okay. Kim's not here. Amber?
Hi, I'm Amber Rucker. I'm a substance use disorder professional, and I currently work at Catholic Community Services Recovery Center.
Great. Welcome. Scott? Okay. Didn't see Satpal.
Scott's on vacation. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Satpal. Let's see. Hannah?
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Sloan. I am a clinical director with Lifeline Connections, and I oversee our behavioral health reentry services program with the Whatcom County Jail and Juvenile Detention, as well as PACT, our program for assertive community treatment program in outpatient setting and New Journeys. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Great. Mary Lou?
I'm Mary Lou Stewart. I'm the small cities representative from the mayors of the small cities.
Yay, welcome. Glad you're here. Okay. Where am I here? Robert Sullivan, I think, was on vacation, right?
Oh, that's right. Good, sorry.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
How about Roman? Are you
No.
here too? Nope. Tank?
Hi, I'm Donnell Tanksley, the Sheriff of Whatcom County.
Great, welcome. And Tasha?
Tasha Thompson, Detective, Linden Police Department.
Okay, so Trevor, I'm going to try one more time. Let's see if it works this time with your audio. No, not yet.
Oh. Now?
Yes.
All right. Sorry about that. My name is Trevor Eritz. I'm a independently licensed mental health and substance use counselor. I'm a part of Associates in Mental Health, and I'm here as a behavioral health specialist.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you, all of our JPOP members. Okay, so if you didn't yet introduce yourself, I'm going to go, why don't you just raise your hand just on the screen so I can see who you are as best I can. Some of you I can see, some of not. So let's start with Stephen. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephen Gockley, former task force member, co-chair with Dan Hamill of the task force's Behavioral Health Committee, and a member of the Informal Justice Project planning team.
Fantastic. Welcome. Hey, Stephen, your sound is a little low, just so you know. Okay, Hannah Fisk.
As Special Projects Manager with Whatcom County Health and Community Services.
Great, welcome. Erica.
Hey, good afternoon. Erica Lautenbach. I'm the Director of Whatcom County Health and Community Services, and I believe I'm a St. Paul's delegate when he's not, or when he's not here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Erica. All right, let's see, who else do we have here? I'm doing my best. Brian, go ahead.
I'm Brian Estes, a member of the Behavioral Health Subcommittee of the Task Force. I'm also with NAMI Whatcom here locally and NAMI Washington's Public Policy Committee. That's the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Great, welcome. Julia.
Hey everyone, my name is Julia Garrett and I am with I'm with Village Reach, and we are contracting with Whatcom County to support the evaluation.
Thank you. Dean.
I'm Dean White. I'm with the Health and Community Services Department and am the contract manager with Village Reach.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, my Lisa.
Hi, I'm Maya Vanya. I'm with the Defender's Office. I'm not a JPOP member. I just came to observe and see what's going on. I am on the IPRTF. Thanks.
Great. Thanks for being here. Bertie? And Eric, do you want to introduce yourselves? And then I think we'll all be here. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, hi. Eric Ritchie, Whatcom County Prosecutor.
Great. Glad you made it. Bertie, you want to introduce yourself? Okay. All right, everybody, welcome. We all made it. This is fantastic, especially with the weather and the seasons. Sometimes it's getting to a meeting is a challenge. So the rest of it is downhill from here. Okay, let's do it. So what we've got to start, I want to go back to or just refresh your memory as to what our agenda is. Oh, and also Marty. My gosh, Marty will be very active in this meeting. So Marty, go ahead.
Well, I'm Marty Solomon, and Holly and I are Crossroads Consulting and helping to facilitate this group.
Awesome.
Glad to see you all.
That's great. Okay, so we have quite a few proposals that we're going to be voting on today. So just a reminder that the JPOP members are the ones who vote, and we'll do roll call votes for each of those. And a couple of important things are that we've got the committee's charter, the rules of procedure, and then the proposal for the co-chair positions. So we're going to move through that. If you're a JPOP member and you do have any questions or concerns during this process, please just speak up. We really do want to hear from everybody if there's anything that needs more tweaking or discussion. And in general, the way we're going to work this is I'll be more in the facilitator role, and Marty will do more of the presentation just to have some flow. And we're going to start right up front with the approval of the committee's charter and rules of procedure. And I want to go through the procedure for voting before we start. So here's how we go through our decision-making process. So again, we do a roll call vote. Only the members or their declared proxies are eligible to vote. So Erica, in this case, since you're representing or a proxy for St. Paul, you would vote. And when your name is called, you say either yes or no, or you abstain. And Marty's keeping track on his spreadsheet in the back end. So the way that it works is with the proposal is read out loud. That's what Marty will do. And then we'll hear a motion and a second from the floor. Then we'll open the floor for discussion. So, and as we talk, kind of the points of unity and any issues of concern, friendly amendments can be made so that we try and do as much consensus building as we can in our process. And then I call for a vote on the final recommendation. It's a simple majority to pass. And if there are unresolved concerns, like these today, in concept, these should be pretty simple issues, but if something really challenging comes up, we will just note any unresolved concerns for the record. Okay, everybody got it? Any questions about the decision-making process? All right. So it's our first decisions. Here we are. Here we go. Proposed changes to the charter. So Marty, could you go ahead?
Okay, and I'm so glad Eric Ritchie is here to hear how this goes. So at the last meeting, which was the first meeting of this Justice Project Oversight and Planning Committee, it was suggested that we had neglected to officially on our documents have a seat for the prosecutor's office, and that is a very important addition that we should make, because the prosecutor's office has a central role in everything related to diversion, which is so critical to the desired systems changes the IPRTF and Justice Project Implementation Plan aim to make. So the proposal is add a seat for the prosecutor's office. This has to be done officially by the council, and the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force needs to bring this a motion that's approved by you, the JPOP, to the council for their approval in order to make this official. Then Eric Ritchie can either serve in that seat or assign somebody to serve in that seat. Are there any questions about that?
Okay. So could I hear a motion to approve the addition of the seat for the prosecutor's office?
Move approval. I
Hank, was that you making a motion?
think that was Dan.
Oh, Dan, thank you.
Second.
And that was Tasha. Thank you. Tasha's second. Okay, the floor is open. So any further discussion, concerns, questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
But do we think this was an oversight, or do we know if this was done purposely for a particular reason?
Stark, you have a response?
I don't have a response to that. I just wanted to speak to the motion.
Okay, great. Does anyone, Marty, do you have a response to that?
I think from working on the implementation plan, I can say that it was an oversight.
I thought so. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Yeah, Stark?
Yeah, so I think it was my suggestion that the prosecutor's office be included in this committee, and I believe I made that suggestion as we were talking about the relative size of the new jail and what it's going to look like, and the necessity that incorporates some consideration of diversion programs and other alternative ways of dealing with the numbers of people that come into the system. And my feeling is none of those discussions can be had without the prosecutors at the table, because they're the ones that drive the train. And so I think it's important. I think it's important for the elected prosecutor or the chief deputy to be participating in these meetings, and I would ask you all to vote for this motion.
Thank you, Stark. All right, anybody else? Okay, we're going to go ahead then, and if there's no other comments or concerns, we'll go ahead and do the roll call vote. So I'm going to open up that screen, and I'm just going to call you out. So Trevor, you give your either, oh, Stark, was that another comment? Okay. So everybody, this is the same kind of moment. We should actually clarify that in it actually will go faster if this is the moment when, if you are a member of the JPOP, you unmute yourself so that we can go pretty quickly. So Trevor Ertz.
Yes.
Heather Flaherty.
Yes.
Thank you. Stark Bolas.
Yes.
Peter Fraser.
Yes.
Dan Hamel.
Aye.
Doreen Hilaire Vargas.
Yes.
Pam Khan.
Yes.
Miriam Carmichael.
Yes.
Jason Corneliuson.
Yes.
Amber Rucker.
Yes.
Erica Lattenbach.
Yes.
Janet Stone.
Yes.
Mary Lou Stewart.
Yes.
Donnell Tanksley.
Yes.
Tasha Thompson.
Yes.
Hey, we did our first vote. That was fun.
But it passed unanimously, not anonymously, but unanimously. That was really great. I feel like we need a little celebration or something. Good job.
Virtual toasting. Okay, let's do the next one.
Okay.
Go
So
ahead,
now
Marty.
we're on to changes to the charter. We have one change here, which is clarification of language. And so this has to do with the creation of new seats like we just talked about and voted on. So if approved, which it was, the council will create additional positions that would be submitted to the the IPRTF will submit to the county council and the executive. The council will vote, create additional positions as needed. The highlighted language is the language that was edited in the charter. So that's what we're wanting to just get your approval of for the charter.
I move approval.
Are there any questions about this?
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Dan and Amber? Okay, thank you.
Great. So here we go again. We're going to do the list. Everybody take your mutes off so you can do, and I'm just going to call you by first name this time. So Trevor.
Yes.
Heather.
Yes.
Stark.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Dan.
Aye.
Doreen.
Yes.
Pam.
Yes.
Miriam.
Yes.
Jason.
Yes.
Amber.
Yes.
Erica.
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Mary Lou.
Yes.
Donnell.
Yes.
Tasha.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries
Great.
unanimously. Super. All right, next proposal.
So now we have a couple of text changes in the rules of procedure document. The first one is a clarification. We posted in the rules of procedure a list of expectations for advisory group members. This is a document from the county. One of those points says that appointed members are expected to regularly attend meetings and are not allowed to designate proxies to serve in their place unless allowed by the enabling statute. We'd like to add in this clarifying language that says members can designate proxies for a meeting they will miss, but cannot establish a permanent proxy without a formal approval of a replacement. And in case anybody is wondering, there are we have a couple of proxies here, but they're for assigned seats, or they're not appointed seats. So this is most important for appointed seats.
Right.
Tang?
Yeah, so where it says without formal approval of a replacement, I think we should say approval by whom. So it's very clear.
Uh-huh. Okay, so that would be the council. County council, I believe. So we can, I think we can add that in.
I'm not sure that's, Tank, is that what you meant?
Yes, it is. Because I mean, So if a person, and I'm not saying that it should be the council, but if a person does say, hey, I can't be at this meeting, and we're saying that that's fine, but establish a permanent proxy without formal approval. I think if that happens at some point, we're going to say approved by, is it this subcommittee or is it the full task force, or does that have to go through the chain up to council?
Stephen might know the answer to this, but my understanding is that with these appointed positions, which are the ones where this pertains to, that this pertains to specifically, that those appointments are made by the council. And so switching somebody to fill that seat would be a council decision. That's how I think it works. If anybody has additional information or thinks it's different, say something.
I will chime in here, Marty. I guess this is confusing to me because you just introduced a replacement. I haven't seen that used other places as opposed to a permanent proxy, which would be an ongoing proxy, like it sounds as if Erica
sound got really weird for a sec.
Yeah, there was some background sound.
Could you restate your point, Stephen?
Yeah, I don't, replacement seems like it's a confusing word in there. I don't see it showing up any other place. And a replacement is different than a permanent proxy.
That's a good point. So, so this could be rephrased. I'm just gonna throw out a suggested edit. Cannot establish a permanent proxy without formal approval of the county council. Does that work?
Is that what you really mean? I mean, did the council approve Erica as South Paul's
No, so that's because they were their seats. Their seats are assigned, and they get to assign them to the person they want. Jason is the designee for Kim Lund as mayor, and Erica when South Paul can't be here, and so they are. Those assigned seats have that flexibility, but appointed members, it is that individual who's appointed. So there's a little bit of a difference there.
Marty, I just made those edits. How about if I made one clarification. How about if I share screen for a second?
Yeah.
So is everybody catching this? Like if your position is already established, it doesn't really apply to you. It applies to folks who are appointed as individuals by the county council. That's what we learned was the issue. So appointed members can designate proxies for a meeting that they cannot establish a permanent proxy without formal approval of the county council. So that's a distinction I'm trying to clarify. So I see Tank, then Stark, and then I thought Tasha. Did you have your hand up, Tasha?
Briefly, but you kind of covered it. I was just looking at the separation between the two in our guidelines for the 9 additional committee members appointed versus the members there's 9 of us specifically this speaks to.
Yep, exactly. Okay, Tank, I think you were next.
And I think my hand was still up from before.
Oh, okay, Stark.
So I guess I'm confused about who is appointed and who is not appointed. I take it that I am a member because the public defender is a member of the body, but not appointed by the council, and other people are appointed by the council who are not members by virtue of their position or something.
Right. And if
Okay.
you can look on the website and it's grouped. So you can see how that plays out.
Okay, so this proposed change only applies to those appointed members, not to someone like me.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Miriam?
Thought it might be helpful for clarification if you went through the list of people this would apply to. So in the charter, there's the membership shall consist of, and there's 1, which are appointed by their agencies, and then 2 members appointed by county council. And I think because the word appointed is used for both, that's where there might be some confusion. So
Yeah.
if you could go through the list, like the bulleted list of the people this would apply for, I think that might help clarify.
Okay, the people who are appointed are Trevor, the behavioral health, Amber, substance use disorder treatment provider, Richard Gleason, criminal legal system user, Tasha Thompson, who is also criminal legal system, Pamela Kahn, supportive housing subject matter expert, Robert Sullivan, reentry specialist, Hannah Sloan, recovery subject matter expert, Scott Rickman, emergency medical services paramedic, and then a youth rep who we still don't have. That's still vacant.
Mhm. And Miriam, I don't know, would this language, if we flipped it like this, make it, I thought when you read it out loud, I thought it was helpful.
Yeah,
With this,
because we use appointed for each of them. So appointed by county council, I think is what we mean here.
Yep. Okay, Stephen, you're up.
2 procedural questions. First, I don't know if I should even be commenting as a non-member of the JPOP. And secondly, I probably ought to go after all the other members have their comments, but I do have some observations from a legal perspective, I guess, that I would make. Do you want me to make those now or wait?
Well, I appreciate your courtesy. So are there any other members of the JPOP who would like to speak before Stephen adds his clarification? Yep, go
Just
ahead.
say that I know there was a motion.
Yep.
Right, and I think in order to change the motion, I remember someone said that they recommend a suggestion, but actually that should be, I think, by the rule, that person should recommend an amendment to the motion.
That's the difference in our decision-making process, Tank. So normally you'd be right, but because we do a variation of Robert's rules, we're not actually doing Robert's rules, so it's like a mix of consensus and motion second revision.
Also, we
Yeah.
don't have a motion on this particular one yet because there is actually a second part, which is the there's a second edit to the rules of procedure that we wanted to go through.
And do
So,
both.
yeah,
Okay.
so we don't have a motion on the floor yet for this.
Okay. So Stephen, well, first, anybody else? Thanks for that clarification, Marty. All right, Stephen.
First, I'd note that there's no clarity on how you designate a proxy. And I mean, I think that would be an important thing to consider. Secondly, as I read this, you can just keep designating a proxy every meeting instead of having a permanent proxy. So it doesn't really seem to accomplish any sorting out in a practical way. Just things you might want to consider in the process that you're establishing.
Okay. Well, what's the sense here? Is the sense, I think you can or I'm hoping that the sort of what we're trying to do here to clarify how proxies work. But if it feels like it's not ripe for decision, we can table this one and come back to it. There's no pressure to figure this out today. Yeah, Dan?
Yeah, on the task force, there's a single proxy for each member. This is to Stephen's point that he just made. This is ambiguous when it comes to, designating proxies. They could change every meeting, which is not going to be helpful for the process here. So I don't have the language here, but I would try to introduce some kind of language that establishes a permanent proxy per member, and that way that person can be theoretically informed as to procedures and how things are going. Otherwise, if we're having stand-ins that come in different meetings, I just think that's not a good process.
Got it. Thank you. Miriam?
Yeah, definitely agree with what you shared, Dan. And I was gonna say that, and also even having to kind of differentiate how many times one can kind of ask their proxy to attend a meeting for them. So having no more than one proxy, and then how many consecutive meetings that proxy attending actually makes them a permanent versus like a one time or a couple time thing. So
Yep.
having like a set number of times of consecutive meetings.
Okay. So my sense of where we're at right now, so in consensus language, we call it the sense of the meeting, is that it's best to wait on this one so we can get this right before we take a vote on it. Is there anybody who feels strongly otherwise? Okay, then we're going to move on to, yeah, Tasha.
So yeah, just reviewing the committee rules for procedure, it just says appointed are expected to regularly attend meetings. So I guess we would potentially have to define regularly so that this would make more sense and amend that.
Yep. Yep. Good point. Any other points for what we need to do to rewrite this?
We also do have a section about absences, so we can try and make sure everything aligns with those.
Okay, good.
This is great discussion. Really really helpful to clarify this. So thanks.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, let's move on then. We're going to do, we got one more on the proposed changes to the rules of procedure. And this we talked about earlier. Marty, you want to, is there anything to say on this that you want to bring forward?
No. Very straightforward, just wanting to add that to our, our way of operating.
Okay. Great. Any questions for clarification? Okay, can I hear a motion to approve?
Just this part on the rule. Yeah.
Just this on the rules of procedure.
So moved.
Okay, second. Okay, I'll go through, so take off your too many files. I'm going to stop share here so I can see my screen. Okay, Trevor.
Yes.
Heather.
Yes.
Stark.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Dan.
Aye.
Yes.
Oh, you're ahead of it, Pam.
Sorry, Dan sounded like Pam.
Okay, Daniel said yes. Doreen, where are you?
Yes.
Pamela.
She said
Miriam
Yes.
said, yeah. Miriam.
Yes.
Jason.
Yes.
Amber.
Yes.
Scott. Eric. Oh, sorry, Scott's not here. Erica.
Yes.
Anna.
Yes.
Mary Lou.
Yes.
Hank.
Yes.
Tasha.
Yes.
Okay. So we've got, how are we doing on time, Marty?
not great. We got to move on. And so let's go. We're over by 5 minutes. So
okay. We are now on to co-chair. Marty, you want to throw it on the screen?
Wow, that's interesting. My my slide controls don't show. Are you seeing the slides?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see if I can make it go. There we go. Okay, so this is about the role of the co-chairs before we get into voting. Does anybody have any questions about the role of the co-chairs?
Yes. Could we? Oh, I was wondering
Sorry,
if,
Miriam, I didn't see
hi
it.
again. I
Hi.
was wondering if we could have just you kind of go over a summary of the role and what they can or can't do. Yeah, just as a summary.
Well, with the responsibilities are here on the screen, and um, so it's a 2-year term, and basically,
Can you pop it up? It's not showing right now. Oh,
Oh.
maybe it is. Sorry, can everybody see it? Sorry, it was just me. Everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
So the co-chairs would be responsible for assisting Holly and me in the design of the meetings, setting the agenda. They also would be serving as a liaison between this committee group and the IPRTF, the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force, by participating in the monthly steering committee meetings of the IPRTF. And they also can attend the IPRTF meetings if they like. That is optional. And in these meetings, they would formally start the meeting and adjourn it. So that's it. We have met with the people who expressed interest in serving in this role. We did interviews with them, and you got their profiles. And then we met with them again, Holly and I did, and we talked about these responsibilities and agreed that it would be very helpful if we met once a month to design the agenda together in conversation. So that's where we are. We had Tasha, Hannah Sloan, and Richard Gleason had put their names forward. And in the conversations with them, Hannah and Tasha wanted to be co-chairs. Richard expressed a real desire to be of service to the group and said he did not have any experience in this kind of leadership role, but really wanted to learn. And he suggested that and in conversation, we kind of came up with this idea that he could be a protege to Tasha and Hannah and just do all of the things with us, be at the agenda design meetings and be present at these meetings, obviously, although he did just text me and say he's moving today and can't get away. So he sends his regrets. But ideally, he'll be at these meetings and also at the IPRTF steering committees whenever he can, steering committee meetings whenever he can. So that is the proposal. And we wanted to give a couple minutes for both Tasha and Hannah to just introduce themselves and say a little bit. But Miriam, I just want to make sure that you're ready. If you had any questions at this point, that you can ask that. Okay. I'll turn off my share just so while Tasha and Hannah introduce themselves. Tasha, you want to go ahead?
Sure, thank you. So I'm Tasha. I've been a resident of Whatcom County my entire life. I have been in law enforcement for 26 years in Bellingham and now Linden Police Department. I have been very active in multiple different ways. I was on the campaign last year working with Peter and Barry, Scott Cordice, and others to get the jail tax passed. And part of the reason they asked me to be on that campaign was because I'm a more conservative leaning person, and some of the concerns that people were expressing about and why the jail tax didn't pass on previous attempts. When I worked for Bellingham, we were working in LEAD and GRACE and starting those programs, so I have a pretty good idea of how they interact with law enforcement and the different agencies and groups that are a part of this. And I think I just bring a unique perspective from having to work on the line level of law enforcement and the perspective I bring to this group for that. So I would appreciate the opportunity to work with every one of you and continue to move this project forward as a co-chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Tasha. Hannah?
Hi, everyone. Hannah Sloan. I am a community behavioral health provider. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, I am a clinical director with Lifeline Connections and have been doing community behavioral health for the past 4 or 5 years. And I currently am the director over a few programs. What are my most important one is the Behavioral Health and Reentry Services program at the Whatcom County Jail and Juvenile Detention, which is a contract that we have through Whatcom County Health Department to provide those services in that setting and really start to connect people with services as soon as they are, sorry, I'm getting some feedback, as soon as they are entered into the system and trying to re-enter the community. We recently, actually today is our last day of a pilot program in the Whatcom County Jail Work Center, and we just finished up a 6-week program of therapeutic groups and individual therapy that has previously not been able to be provided in the jail. So we're really working to expand those services and make sure that the people interested in under our care in Whatcom County are really being looked after and receiving what they need to recover and be better neighbors in our community. I also oversee our program for assertive community treatment team, our PAC team, and that is for individuals with serious mental illness who have been living with symptoms of psychosis or affective disorders, so bipolar disorder, major depression, and they need more intensive services in a community setting. And then New Journeys is our early psychosis program. So really involved with community behavioral health and all of the other behavioral health providers throughout the county, and would really enjoy the opportunity to be part of this and continue expanding and improving behavioral health care services for everyone in the county, and especially those with criminal involvement. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. All right, so the proposal before us is to select Tasha Thompson and Hannah. Oh, I said Stone, I'm sorry, on the slide. There is a Hannah Stone. So I'm gonna we'll change that. We mean Sloan to serve as co-chairs of the JPOP and Richard Gleason to be their protege. So is there, well, passing it to Holly here.
Yep. Motion to approve. Yep, Dan?
Yeah, can you take the slide off so we can all
Yeah.
so we're like in the little Brady Bunch
Yeah.
Format here. So I appreciate the explanations of curriculum vitas and sort of the you know, just the backgrounds and everything. And I know of Tasha's work a little bit, but I don't know much about Hannah's work. And this is one of the most consequential roles that people will fill, given the fact that this is the county's largest capital expenditure and all the attendant services and all the things that go with them. So what I want to hear is why do you want to play this particular role? I just think that's really important for this group to understand.
Yeah, Daniel, did you see the materials in the packet?
I briefly went over them, but I just, while we're in this room here together, I think it'd be helpful just to have that very brief conversation. That's it. That's all I'm asking for.
Okay. So so Marty did do an interview with each candidate. And so if we have time, I just want to be conscious of time because we are getting on 3 o'clock and we have a presenter. So but to honor the request, could you very briefly, please, Tasha, tell us why you'd like to serve as co-chair?
Well, as I touched on before, I just having worked in law enforcement, and we've been struggling to sometimes have success with all these different programs that are all great, but the infrastructure needed to make this, I think, truly successful is a new jail facility with all these things. And we have, I explained before, we have an awesome opportunity in this county to make it, with all these diverse collaborations, exactly what fits our community, not a substandard, cookie cutter block of all the other jails throughout, but this is something that works, a justice center that works, yes, incarceration, but also focusing on addiction and mental health and how the jail can help stabilize and then present to these other organizations. And so I think we just have an awesome opportunity, and I'm dedicated to making this a reality.
Thank you very much. All right, and where's Hannah? Hannah, do you want to briefly state why you'd like to serve as the chair? Or co-chair, sorry, co-chair.
Yes, sorry. So I think my two biggest passions are serving individuals with mental health concerns and trying to be part of reforming the criminal justice system. I think the system has not been set up in a way to support individuals. I think it's very punitive, and we can do a lot to make it better and to make it a rehabilitative system rather than a punitive one. And so I want to continue the work that I have been doing the last few years in this environment to make the jail, make just general justice system options available, diversion options better for the individuals we're serving, especially the ones who are most vulnerable, because those are the ones that I work with every day. Individuals with schizophrenia, with any kind of mental health issues and co-occurring disorders. I really enjoy working with them and getting to know them as people, and they and others are really harmed by the way that our criminal justice system in America is currently set up. And I think Whatcom County is doing a really good job to make that better for our community here. So I would like to make sure that that is actually happening, and we're seeing these programs come to fruition that we've been advocating for a long time.
Thank you, Hannah. Okay, so the proposal on the floor, and we're going to pop that back up for a moment, please, is that Hannah and Tasha would serve as co-chairs. The concept of a protege is somewhat new, but this is the opportunity. Richard Gleason is our representative of people with lived experience and would really like to be in a learning role here. And so this is the proposal on the floor. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll go ahead and move approval of selecting Tasha Thompson and Hannah Sloan to serve as co-chairs of the JPOP and Richard Gleason to be the protege as presented here in the packet.
Thank you, Dan. Do I hear a second? Great, Trevor is seconded.
Trevor,
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Right, hearing none, I'm going to call for the roll call. Here we go. We'll go through it smoothly as usual. So Trevor?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Here?
Yes.
Daniel?
Aye.
Irina?
Yes.
Pamela?
Yes.
Miriam? Did I hear you, Miriam?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Great. Jason?
Yes.
Great. Amber?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Mary Lou?
Yes.
John? Tank?
Yes.
Tasha?
Yes.
Hey, we got ourselves some chairs. Got a protege. I love it. All right. I'm going to suggest we just say a few words of introduction and turn it over.
Yes.
To
I agree.
Okay.
So we are now at the more significant content part of our meeting, and we're going to learn about results-based accountability. And we're so pleased to have Amy Fuller from the Whatcom Health and Community Services here she's an expert in this area and has just a lot of experience applying the results-based accountability model. I'm not going to say a lot about the model. I want to pass it off to Amy to introduce herself and just get us into this material. I'll stop sharing, Amy, so you can bring your slides up. All right. Looks good.
Okay, Amy, you're muted right now, but we're so pleased that you're here. Thank you.
Great start. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Amy Fuller. I work for the Whatcom County Health and Community Services, previously the Health Department as a performance management specialist. And that's just a fancy way of saying I work with programs to help them determine which data is the best data to help them evaluate their programs and to monitor the health of their program while also helping them strategically plan for the future of their programs. And we do use the results-based accountability framework. And Holly and Marty thought I'd be the best person to give you guys an overview of what RBA looks like in action and why it might be related very closely to the work that you're doing. It might be the best choice for you in terms of looking at a framework to help you evaluate your project. So I know it's kind of late in the afternoon and this is always a prime time so I will try not to be too much of a talking head. I'm going to cover the basics, talk about, again, just some real life experience I've had with applying it to community health projects and my current work in the health department. And then at the end, give you plenty of time to ask me questions. And if you have any questions, just put them in the chat. And because I want to try and make this as continuous as possible and not get too derailed. So, okay, so I just want to start by saying, hopefully by the time I'm done today, you'll walk away again with an understanding, just a basic understanding of how RBA works, why it's related to your work, how it helps you choose the right data to evaluate your work, how we at the health department facilitate collecting and reporting of our RBA project data, and then again, how we use it to engage with our community partners and communicate our program impact to the public. And of course, lessons learned along the way. So I wanted to start by contextualizing why I'm talking about RBA in terms of collective impact, because that's what you are doing with the Justice Project. Collective impact, again, is based on the idea that most social problems are so complex in nature that one agency, no matter how well funded, is not going to be able to fix the problem. So we're looking at compiling our resources as agencies, as community partners, and merging together to address one issue instead of all working on different issues at the same time in silos, but merging our collective abilities to address one issue. In order for collective impact to be successful, there need to be 5 elements that are met. The first one is to have a common agenda. So while we all may be working on the same thing, we need to be very clear what that thing is. So again, with this particular project, very clearly defining the intervention of, you're not just building a jail, you're building a jail, but a more progressive approach to, again, mental health services, making sure that people who don't necessarily need to be in jail are directed to the right services, and we're keeping our jail populations manageable. A shared measurement. So shared measurement means that everyone is agreeing how you're measuring the success of your shared vision or your shared strategy, and that everyone is collecting that data on a consistent basis, and we're reporting it. And it sounds like JPOP, this is going to be your role, is to review that data on a regularly scheduled basis to determine whether or not you're making progress on this project in the way that you want to. And again, if it's having the impact that you want it to on the people you want it to. And again, it's why we're bringing up RBA is because it's about accountability, because there's going to be a lot of players at the table and you need to hold each other accountable. And data helps you do that by merging together everyone's efforts, making data transparent so that everyone can build trust around the activities. Mutually reinforcing activities. Most people would agree that people are involved with this because they've got skin in the game, so to speak. Most people here are working for agencies that will benefit from this project, and therefore your agency is either funding your time or you're personally motivated because it aligns with your beliefs and your values, but for whatever reason you're here because it will make a difference to you or people you work with. And so the activities that you're engaged with and the outcomes of this project should be mutually reinforcing to everyone at the table. Continuous communication, again, it sounds like you guys are setting up a schedule for that, but making sure that the ball is not dropped in terms of constantly communicating about how things are going, progress on the project, outcomes of the project. And then last but certainly not least is backbone support. So that means that one agency is going to hold that accountability structure. So even if you get the right data and you get the reporting schedule and the meeting schedule, is there an agency that's making sure all of those schedules are held? That, you know, I heard you talking a bit ago about making sure that people are showing up to meetings. So again, and not just sending proxies in one after the other, but definitely showing up and being able to support the work consistently. Results-based accountability comes in at the accountability piece. So it's definitely aligned with shared measurement, but it also helps align the other 4 elements. So I like this visual to talk about how collective impact works in cascading levels. And I think from what I'm gathering that JPOP is a bit of a steering committee, but you have a backbone organization, which sounds like the county executive's office, that's going to hold the container for this work. And then you have the steering committee that's going to guide the work. They're going to set the governance, the vision, and the strategy through the evaluation plan. So the very clear parameters around this project work is going to be set by the steering committee. And then you have the working groups, the people who are going to set the action plans. So usually within a large scale project like this, there are several strategies or buckets of work that are being worked on, and there's various groups working on those, setting out the action plans with the various task lists. And then you have the community partners that are actually doing the actions and completing the tasks. So there's action planning that moves to execution, but then last and certainly not least is public will, which as we know can change and directs the work. So it's a continuum. The governance and vision and strategies guides the work is done. The public tells us whether or not it's working the way that they need it to. And through that feedback cycle, we direct our work. And results-based accountability is a framework that communicates very well with the public because of the way that it structures its language to be universally understood by a lot of different people. So I don't know if there's any old school gamers in the audience. Okay, great. I usually find my people right away with this slide. For those of you who recognize this slide, this is a game called Pitfalls, and I like to use it in terms of collective impact sounds great on paper, everybody's behind it, but I've been a part of many collective impact projects, especially in working in public health at the community level, where you get people working together on collective projects, and I've seen them fail more often than not because of these 3 reasons. 1, the end goal is not clearly defined. So everyone can be really excited around a certain ideal, but either the project is too big and it turns into a zombie project with no end in sight and it peters out. And the end is not clearly defined, so you don't know when you've achieved your objective. And I would say, in my experience, the probability of success of a project is directly proportional to the specificity of the intervention. There's no accountability structure. So again, if you are setting up a project and tasks that are to be done, if no one's holding anyone accountable for the work, it will peter out and nothing will happen. If you can't measure something and report out on that measurement and people aren't being held accountable, the work doesn't get done. And last, the wrong data drives the work. And then if you're using the wrong data to measure your progress, you can't tell if what you're doing is actually working. And so you don't know where to direct your energy or your resources. And so how does RBA help avoid these pitfalls? I'm my own audience plant in this scenario. Well, let me tell you. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of RBA, and I do like to start out with the story of the founder of RBA. Mark Friedman he worked in fiscal policy, and I believe it was in Maryland or Massachusetts in the Health and Human Services Division. So he was responsible for doling out buckets of money to programs like WIC, programs that helped vulnerable populations. And what he saw happen budget cycle after budget cycle is he would go to these folks with a bucket of money, be like, I'd like to give you this money, but we need to see that you've had impact. And he said these big groups of well-meaning people with huge hearts that were pouring their souls into their work couldn't tell you with definitive answers what impact they were having. They could tell you stories about the people they were helping, but they couldn't show you through data that they actually made a difference. And so that really bothered him. So he came up with, basically, he's like, nothing I'm telling you is new under the sun. I'm just packaging it in a way that is really simple and easy to understand and accessible to people. And it helps you get from talk to action. Because how many meetings are we in where we talk and talk and talk and then nothing happens? And he was like, I see that all the time in health and human services. And so he developed this framework to put all these already known tools together to help us get from talk to action and to help us talk about our work in a way that shows that we're actually having impact. So this is the framework in a nutshell. It's pretty simple. There are two kinds of accountability, and so I will talk about these in detail, but it's very important. If you get nothing out of my presentation today, I'd like you to understand the difference between the two types of accountability data that we use. One is population accountability, and one is performance accountability. And those are two very different types of data. And one of the biggest mistakes I think we make in evaluating our work in health and human services is using population level data for the whole population to talk about the success of an intervention or a program that's serving a specific population. And then I'm going to talk about three kinds of performance measurements. So when we're actually talking about an intervention or a program, there's only three questions we need to answer to effectively evaluate whether or not our work is having impact. And it's how much are we doing? How well are we doing it? And is anybody better off? And I will go into those three measures in detail as well. And then once we have that data and we're looking at it, we're going to ask ourselves 5 questions. And the turn the curve philosophy is this idea that, we have a lot of these projects, and even at the federal level, we talk about, getting to zero and, bringing it down to zero and the myth of zero, which is in real life, I don't know about any of you, but I've never experienced zero homeless, people experiencing homelessness or zero people experiencing food insecurity. Zero is a really improbable and unlikely number. But what we can do is we can turn a curve. The idea that if there was no intervention at all, if we were to look at the data, we would consistently see it get worse. But if there is an intervention, hopefully, if we collaborate, pool our resources, we can turn the curve toward zero. So this framework is used by communities to improve quality of life for its residents and by organizations to improve program performance. So I'm going to start with the first type of accountability. So this is population accountability. And I think population accountability is the classic, I think it's what we're used to talking about when we're talking about, especially in public health, we're looking at a condition of well-being. What is the result we want for our population? In public health, we want clean drinking water for everyone. We want a community that's free of disease. Again, having a community entirely free of disease is unlikely, but that's our goal. Our pie in the sky dream is to keep everybody safe, happy, well-being. And so example conditions of well-being, all kiddos are ready for kindergarten. Residents have safe, stable housing. These are these conditions of well-being we'd like to see in our community. But how do we measure those? Those are subjective statements. If you want to see how well we're achieving that result, you're going to want to use data. And so we use population health indicators. And what do I mean by that? This is a measure that helps quantify that condition of well-being. And this is something, these are data that are available at the population level. So think census data, think federal or state level data that we have access to look at, rates of low birth weight babies, percent ready at kindergarten entry, general crime rates, air quality index for environmental health indicators, unemployment rates. These are these population level. So for the entire population of Whatcom, we can look at this data to see how well we're meeting these conditions of well-being. But what Friedman argues is using the right data is more important than just looking at any data, because this is a lot of data that's available, but how do you know you're looking at the right population indicator? So the first thing you want to look at is its communication power. So ideally, when you're looking at an indicator, you want it to be able to communicate to a wide variety of audiences. So for example, in environmental health, And we're looking at indicators for clean drinking water. We have an indicator that's like percent of fecal coliform in the water with a pH level of blah, 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 blah. Like, we're not going to throw that one out there to the general public to be like, we're meeting our quota. You know, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about gallons of clean drinking water produced, something that's means a lot to a lot of people. You also want to look at importance power. So does it say something of central importance about the result you're trying to achieve? And does the indicator bring along the data herd? And what we mean by that is sometimes certain indicators can move along with other indicators. Like, for example, low birth weight babies. We know when we're seeing an increased incidence of low birth weight babies in a population, we're also going to see an increase of other indicators, such as poverty, such as access to healthcare. We're going to see a lot of other data go in lockstep with that indicator. So you get more bang for your buck, so to speak, with one indicator. You can look at a lot of things with just one indicator. And then the third is data power. And this one is extremely important because there can be a lot of great indicators that are not available because A, we don't have access to them. We can't get them on a timely basis. Census data is one of those. And we've had a lot of problems with census data over the past few years. Either it's not collected accurately, or funding has been lost for it, or just all sorts of issues why we can't get to census data. So we're not necessarily, it doesn't have a lot of data power right now to tell us what we need to know. And is it cost effective to produce it? So if we do put time and energy into producing our own data, like polling every single person in Whatcom County can cost thousands and thousands of dollars. Is it really worth it in the end? Or could we get that indicator from something else? And you take your list of data indicators. So you look at all the indicators you could possibly look at for your issue. So for example, I would say when we're looking at the jail, we have a defined list of indicators that we can choose from. And you take each one of those measures and you look at them for their communication power, their proxy power, importance power, and their data power, and you rank them. So this is a workshop you can do to pick your indicators. And obviously, if you get all highs, you want to choose that as your major indicators. And then if you have, let's say it has high communication power, high importance power, but it's really hard to get, you'll put that on a data development agenda that's shovel ready. So if you get funding to get more data, then that would be on a date, just shovel ready to go. And this is your 3-part indicator list. So again, you want those 3 to 5 headline indicators that would be meaningful to the community and that anybody could understand immediately when they're looking at it, like kiddos ready for kindergarten. Anything else that's good to the story or could be used later in the story behind the curve. And that's a RBA saying story behind the curve. It's basically a factor analysis, a force field analysis when you're looking at what pushes up and down on data in a community. And then your data development agenda, always having that at the ready of data, your dream list of data that you could have if you could afford it or access it. And again, our indicator data, the right indicators can be used to tell us to see if our combined efforts are bringing us closer to our desired result. Again, we want to see if our collective impact project is turning the curve down towards 0 or up towards, I mean, depending on which way we're going and how we define that indicator. But it can also be used to determine if we are going in the right direction or if our approach needs change. So if we're not seeing it go in the direction we want to, then we're going to go back to the activities that we are funding to see if they are actually working. So what indicators don't tell us is which part of the approach is working or not. That's where performance data comes into play. So again, when I said there's 2 types of accountability, there's population accountability, where we owe it to our population to look at these health indicators, watch them closely, see what's going on and what they're measuring. And then we're going to look at the programs that speak to that indicator. So we started with population accountability and we're moving on to, that's talking about everybody in Whatcom County. Performance accountability is speaking specifically to client populations and to clients of programs, organizations, agencies, and service systems. So again, the difference there is everybody in Whatcom County versus people who are directly impacted by the services that are being provided. And the direct clients are people receiving services, but then there's also indirect people that are impacted by your services. Whether that's staff that are working, agency staff that are working on the project, whether that's community members and community partners that are involved in supporting the work. These are all incorporated into performance accountability. And there are 2 types of two phrases I want to clarify. You'll hear me talk about programs. I'm talking about program, organization, or service system when I say program. And the other is performance measure. So again, just to make sure we're all speaking the same jargon, a performance measure is just a measure of how well the services provided by a program, organization, or service system are working on a particular body of clients. Not the whole population, just a particular body of clients. So program performance measures should be able to answer three simple questions. One, how much did we do? So those are your basic counts of activities. And then we're looking at how well did we do those activities? So any activities performed by staff, by programs, that's when you're looking at benchmarks. How well did we provide that activity? And then in the end, is anybody better off? So you're always starting with the end when you're defining your program performance measures. You want to first start with the impact you want to have on the clients. So in this case, if we're looking at a subset of people who are high jail utilizers, or if we're looking at a subset of people who are often in mental health crisis and jail is not the right place for them. So we're developing diversion interventions so that they don't end up in jail, but they're connected to the right services. We want to define how do we want to change things for them so they're better off? Are we going to give them skills, increase a skill set, increase a behavior, or decrease an unwanted behavior? Are we looking to increase the circumstance, or in this case, decrease the circumstance of being sent to jail? We want to define that very clearly, what better off means for these clients. And then we want to look at, when we're looking at how well we've performed this activity, the effect we're having, we're going to look at percent of all those clients over time. And that's going to be our headline measure of how well we're doing this thing. We're going to watch that closely. And if it's not going in the direction we want it to go, then we're going to go back to the actual program. So our program logic model of the activities that we're performing, number of customers served, activities completed by type of activity, and then within the classic common measures of how much time did we spend, money, activity specific measures. Like, for example, in our RSD diversion services, goals achieved by the clients, or are we looking for mental health court? We're looking at, how many people had charges reduced over time, although actually, sorry, that's an effect, not a effort thing. Anyways, I digress. But as you can see, there's a difference between our internal program dashboard metrics, where we're monitoring ourselves and we're looking at the quantity and quality of our effort, to ultimately determine how much of an effect we're having on the clients that we're serving. And I put this in a classic logic model context, again, just to say, nothing is new under the sun. Mark Friedman has just adapted things into a more simpler framework. I think usually when people hear the word logic model, they're kind of want to back away quickly, because it's some pretty dry material unless you do this for a living. But ideally, it falls into this classic logic model of, you get the inputs to do the project, and then at some point you push the go button, and hopefully you'll have hired staff, you'll have policies and procedures and performance standards, all of that guiding the work. And then you'll start having outputs produced, and then you'll have the outcomes of your activities. Is anybody better off? And then ultimately, every 3 to 5 years, you're going to be wanting to do that community health evaluation, answering those questions of overall, how healthy is our community? We're looking at that population indicator data. We're going to say, system level outcome, our healthcare, our judicial system, epidemiological data. So whether that's mental health care access, disease, death, community voice is also very important. So we're not just looking at the epidemiological data, but we're also looking at integrating community voice. So whether it's the agency partners we work with, whether it's the clients themselves who are having lived experience, receiving services from whatever project or intervention is being put into place, all of that is put into a comprehensive, how are we doing report. And that's strategic planning in a nutshell, where you're saying, okay, do we need to change direction? Do we need to switch funding to here? Do we need to readjust? That sort of thing. And again, I think I wanted to clarify, I hear a lot of confusion sometimes when people are picking which data to use to evaluate their programs. and the clarification between system level outcomes and total population outcomes. So again, it is all dependent on the client. So in the case of, for example, the diversion services that we provide at the health department, we have different programs with different bodies of clients, RSD, LEAD, GRACE. But as an agency, we can say we have outcomes for our entire RSD division. So we can look at outcomes, we can roll up outcomes for all those programs. For example, EMS utilization, we can look at jail usage, jail days. All of those are metrics we can collect for all of those programs together. And then service client outcomes from the service system. So when we're working with partners to look at how are our clients that we're serving interacting with the system. Hopefully we're seeing less utilization of the system, and we're looking at, again, metrics like how is the community level of safety? How is the, when we're looking at tax dollars being spent, we look at cost avoidance metrics. We look at all sorts of things that relate to the service system. But the total population outcomes, again, is that indicator level data for the entire population. So you might look at jail usage for the entire population, but there can be overlap. So in a nutshell, we're looking at means and ends. The program service delivery and the clients that we're providing those services to are the means to the ends. And we're using results and to define what those ends are and indicators to tell ourselves if we're going in the right direction and making progress towards those results. Now I want to get into the turn the curve questions. So this is something I believe you guys are fairly far along in your planning, since you already have, I think it sounds like, a pretty clear draft of which interventions you're going to use. But what Friedman says is, once you've defined the result you want clearly for your population, so in this case, if the population is high jail utilizers, I'm just using that as an example, and we want to measure that condition with we'll say a metric of people, percent of people that are high utilizers of end up in jail a lot. And then we look at the programs that are serving these people. So we'll define those programs and what specific interventions, whether it's case management, whether it's mental health connections, whether it's, I'm thinking specifically of like mental health courts, a big one. I think that would play a large role in a project like this. Looking at the outcomes for those customers. What kind of outcomes are we looking to see? Increase and decrease in what? A skill set, a behavior, a condition of living. You want to take that data and ask 5 questions. So this can be used at the community level and at the program level. First, you're going to sit down and you're going to look at your data that will have been collected and prepared for you into a nice report, hopefully, if you have someone like me on your team. They will have nicely visualized your data for you, and you'll be looking at percentage of clients who are better off. So that headline metric, and you're going to ask yourself some questions about the data. So is this reliable data? Is it valid? What is it saying to us? What's not clear? Do we all have a shared understanding of what's happening here? And then you want to look at stories behind the curve. So we would call this a force field analysis if you're used to strategic planning terminology, where you're looking at what are the factors pushing down on the data? What are the factors pushing up on the data? So, and by factors, I mean, you know, what sort of, you know, what's the funding situation looking like? Is there new legislation? Did we just have a pandemic? Did we have a weather event? Like, there are all sorts of outside external circumstances that can change whether or not data goes up and down. So this is, I'm also the quality improvement specialist for the department. So if you're familiar with the 5 whys as a quality improvement tool, is just asking why, like your 3-year-old, if you have one of those, until you get to a root cause of what might be happening there. And when you get to the root cause, so when you're looking at, okay, the data says this, and we've identified root causes, like there's potentially a staff shortage, or let's say that there's an inefficiency in the way that the the program is being run, or let's say it's just not the right intervention. You want to engage, so this is called a stakeholder analysis. You want to look at who are the partners who have skin in the game that are going to help you develop a solution to whatever the issue is. And it sounds like you guys have already developed some of your solutions. So I think at this point, you're just looking to put the metrics into play, the evaluation metrics. But this can also be used again at a micro. So there's macro level of strategic planning for community health improvement projects like you've already done, but the micro level at the program level, looking at, I would look at who in the agency and which community partners are we working with that are going to help us solve the problem together. So it'd be a quality improvement project essentially. And then we're looking at solutions. So this is just a classic brainstorm where you're looking at evidence-based practices, tried and true research-based practices, low cost, no cost. Again, low cost, no cost means the work's already being done. You're just going to put some momentum behind it. You can look at community groups that are already working on this, public groups, that community action groups. Again, systems level change where we're looking at changing policy at the legislative level. So the money trickles down to us, but we don't necessarily have to do all the work at our end. It's going to be done, hopefully, all the hard work will be done at the governmental level. That's rare. Promising practices, what's going to work best in our community, what will fit the needs of our community. Off the wall suggestions, anything that sticks, and then multifaceted solutions. How do we get the most bang for our buck? So it sounds like you guys have gone through an iteration of this to pick your interventions or your solutions for the Justice Project. So I won't spend too much time on that. And then you get to the action plan. So you guys have a pretty robust action plan from what I've seen. And again, this is, I think this is where things get tricky because the bigger the plan, you know, it's a bit like the Titanic, the harder it is to turn on a dime if you see an iceberg coming. So really, the more concrete and specific you can get about your intervention, and then each agency has a task or an set of action items that they're going to be performing. So let's say one agency is we're going to procure funding, the other agency is like we're going to set up the meeting schedule. However you want to define those actions. Again, Gantt charts, visual communication tools, but this accountability structure within an action plan. And then last but not least, holding meetings. I know we all love meetings, but they really are helpful when it comes to talking about data. And believe it or not, they can actually be fun if they're done well, where you can look at data and they can be really interesting because you're seeing in live time how the work is turning out and what's happening. And usually what we do is after the quarter ends, the data is available that's produced by the programs. And then we have turn the curve meetings where we sit with program leadership and we look at, you know, what are all the factors? We ask those 5 questions. What's going on here? What's happening? And sometimes there's not much to report and sometimes there's big changes. But either way, at the end of the quarter, we create quarterly or annual reports. And these can go to leadership and they can be used to create presentations to governance. So council or whoever it is that you need to be presenting progress reports to on the state of, I think in this case, it would be you guys. You guys would be getting the progress reports. So I wanted to talk a little bit about data collection because I haven't heard much about that for this project so far. And I do think it's an important piece that needs to be thought about before any project gets started, before money gets sent out and programs get started. The actual architecture of data collection is really important. So for us at the health department, I would say that the most robust data infrastructure we have right now is for the RSD, the Response Services Division, which is working with the jail pretty frequently. And what we do is we have a centralized server, which acts as one point of entry for our various community partners. So we have EMS, jail staff, and our RSD staff who are providing direct services, entering data into one server. At this time, we're still working on DSAs, data sharing agreements with the hospital. We just got one with the prosecutor's office, and then we're working on one with Bellingham Police Department. Right now, we're just getting that in raw data form, but it all can be uploaded into Gelada so that we can use Tableau, which is a data visualization software, to create these interactive charts for our staff so they can see in real time how their programs are doing. So think of it like a dashboard of your car. You can see how much gas you need, how far you're going, if your check engine light's on. Like these dashboards are used for real-time program governance. And I just talked about the data sharing agreements. So these are the people that we will have fully operational DSAs with. And I think this is running pretty parallel to what you guys will be looking at ultimately when you're looking to evaluate your program. And we'll be using that data for data communication. So data communication, I like to make a distinction between, because I hear these words used interchangeable, but they're very different. So informatics versus infographics. So when you're talking about data communication, informatics is we have Jeremy, basically a wizard who works at our department over in the nerd herd, as we like to call ourselves. And he is basically allows machines to talk to each other. I mean, as far as I understand it, that's not my expertise, obviously. I'm the communications person. I'm not the I'm not the data construction wizard, but he's building the databases, the software, the coding that allows software and IT systems to talk to each other so that we can have safe and secure data collection, storage, and retrieval and easily access this data. So we maintain confidentiality. We make sure that we're getting the necessary data, the correct data, and we're making sure that our IT database and all of the software allows for better data analysis. So he's making sure all those different things talk to each other so that I can come in and then visualize that data for better communication. So my job is more about infographics. So I come in making sure the programs know which data to collect and that they're putting it in the right place, and that I make sure that it's visualized in a way that it communicates effectively to them what they want to know about their program. So infographics, again, something people use all the time, but infographics, you can have two types. You have the infographics that are just pictures, like, you see that for public health, wash your hands, mask up, or, all the things we put out that are just pictures with messaging that are supposed to be universally communicative to a wide variety of audiences, very little text, very easy to understand message. Within 8 seconds of viewing it, you should be able to contextualize what's going on. And then you have data visuals. So data visuals incorporate data to tell a story. So how much did things change over time? How is one group different from another? Survey results say, like, it's telling a story specifically with data. And then we also have another type of data visual, which is more about analysis. So we call it exploratory versus explanatory. So a data infographic with just little bits of data and a quick story is explanatory. We want to tell you a message. We want you to get the message really quickly, versus data analytics, where we're going to look at like trend variables over time. And again, ask ourselves questions about what's going on with the data. That's the analysis piece. But we want infographics to be easy to understand by a wide variety of audiences. So when we're talking about data communication products, and you guys will have to let us know, well, I'm not quite sure what role we're going to play in this as a health department, but when you are asking for data from folks, know that you can get it in various forms. You can get it depending on the audience. If you are, let's say, looking for quarterly reports, monthly reports, annual reports, those are going to look different from, let's say, like I said, an internal dashboard, or like a slide deck, a one-pager, a newsletter for the public. Those are all going to look a little bit different and be formatted a little bit different, depending on what you want to do from the data, what you need from the data. And again, what we're working on right now at the health department, we're building out our data infrastructure. So modernizing the data infrastructure at the health department, which was long outdated when I came on board in 2020, and then we had COVID, so we're still a little bit behind the ball. But we're standardizing our collection of program data, again, building out program dashboards so we can generate quarterly and annual reports, and then create these 3 to 5 year program evaluations that can be used for strategic planning cycles. When I talk about standardizing data, I just want to clarify what I mean by that. It means one point of data entry for all programs. So again, even if all agencies are entering it, we have staff in all agencies doing the work, entering the data, they're going to enter it into one virtual platform in one place. Standard data definitions across programs means clear communication. So we're all using the same words to describe the same things. indicators versus performance measures, making sure we know what we're talking about when we say population indicators. We're not going to use population indicators to measure the success of a program intervention. A clear process for documentation. Everyone knows how to do it, when to do it, where to do it. Process and schedule for reporting, so partners stay informed. That's transparency, that's building trust, it's clear communication, consistent communication. And then again, clearly define operators, end users, and admins on the tech side of things. So making sure the people who know their stuff, their tech stuff, are assigned the right roles to support this type of a project. So in a nutshell, applying RBA takes care, it takes commitment, and it has to be designed and delivered. So you don't just, it's not a slapdash, one size fits all. It has to be carefully thought about and planned. There are key ingredients that need to be met. There's a process that requires planning and implementation around choosing your population indicators to measure whether or not your interventions are working. And then again, defining clearly which client base you want to see which change for and how you're going to measure that with your performance measures and tying those to your indicators. And then understanding that this takes time to build trust and accountability. So again, I don't expect people, when I'm working with a community group, to come together and trust each other right away. And I've seen more often than not how quickly trust can dissolve when people don't hold their agreements and don't communicate clearly and transparency is lost. I've seen these things fail more often than not because lack of consistency, lack of communication, lack of clear data. So I would say that when I've seen this work well, it's pretty amazing. So I highly advocate for it whenever you're doing any sort of large scale collective impact community change. And yeah, I should have had a question slide there. Sorry, that was a lot of information really fast. But again, this is an overview. It was a nutshell. Normally I have more interactive slides and give you a chance to practice. But this is just a small chunk of time. So anyone have any questions?
Yeah, that was absolutely fabulous, Amy. Knocked it out of the park. Thank you so much. Yeah, Peter, go ahead. And then I'd really like to invite people who haven't yet had a chance to speak today, for you to go first if you have questions or thoughts. Peter.
Amy, thanks so much. That was a really great introduction to the framework, and I'm excited to see us employ this. This is less of a question for you, though I am very interested in hearing anything you have on this, and maybe it's for Holly and Marty. How is it that we are implementing this? Who is leading us? Who's our RBA expert who will be making sure that JPOP uses all of the underpinnings of the process and keeping us on task? Do we have an answer for that?
We're working that out. We're going to be figuring that out in the coming month. So yeah, you've nailed it exactly. So I think, could we turn off the share screen so we can all see?
Oh, I sure can. Yes, I sure can.
But thank you. So noted, Peter, right on point. Trevor.
And Peter, my understanding is we are, and I hope I'm not overstepping, but my understanding is there's a process in the works, the contract with Village Reach, who they automatically use RBA in their evaluation model. They use RBA combined with another community change model. So of their work I've seen so far, I think that would be automatically baked in if that contract does go through with them.
Trevor?
Hi there. I have a clarification and then a question. The clarification is, my takeaway from your presentation was that one of the main factors that determines the effectiveness of your interventions and therefore the success of the model is being able to accurately identify very efficacious root causes. Am I thinking about that right?
Efficacious?
Root causes that have high efficacy, like you're very
Oh,
accurate.
yes, sorry. Yes,
Sorry.
okay. Yes. Yes. So I think, again, that's more in the planning stages. I would say, like, when you're initially choosing an intervention and you're looking at, for example, one of the collective impact projects I worked on where we were looking at youth mental health. And, you know, you have everybody in the room, you've got the sheriff's office, the hospital, you know, all of these different partners. And you're like, not everybody, like we all will eventually receive benefit from working with youth, but like who are the immediate partners? Like if we're looking at the root cause, we're going to look at how far back do we go? Is it early education? Is it supporting families? Is it putting energy towards like early Head Start or universal health care or childcare? Or do we want to focus on immediate needs of like our root causes in the schools of there not being like therapists or people who can immediately work with middle schoolers who are having a mental health crisis? So really looking at root causes and immediate needs. And yeah, that can be a really, depending on what you're choosing to look at for your indicator. So for example, if you were looking at youth in school, so that was one of the things we worked on was youth in school, substance abuse and behavioral health. And we are looking at root causes, like, is it the family that needs support? Is it that the school system isn't supporting them? That sort of thing.
Okay. So then my question becomes, if you're looking at serving a population such as a high-risk population that is more than likely going to find themselves legally involved over time, and you're looking to find the primary root causes of that, with so many socioeconomic and cultural factors that may be coming into play, how might you go about trying to determine your most base root causes? Just because it seems like the amount you'd have to look at would be incredibly overwhelming. So it's more of a process question of like, how do you go about identifying your primary root causes?
Yeah, so I'm just going to share my screen really quick if you don't mind. Can you see this infographic?
Yep. Yep.
So again, as we know, human beings are incredibly complex creatures. And when we look at social determinants of health from a public health perspective, we know that when it comes to what sets someone on a path of a healthy versus an unhealthy life outcome, and especially when you're looking at, let's say, jail populations where they probably have a very high ACEs score, a complex history of trauma. They've got, they probably came from a low socioeconomic background. You're going to look at, you know, all of these social and economic determinants are usually the highest drivers of whether or not someone ends up with these type of outcomes. So usually the solution is twofold. One, so my background is in behavioral health, in human development and substance abuse and recovery and early childhood. And we look at basically, you can't prevent someone from experiencing trauma in their life, but you can increase resiliency factors. So if someone's already gone through their life and they didn't have the components in place, a strong social support network, a safe community, a house where they were able to build these resilience factors, then we have to counter for that and usually provide a comprehensive intervention. So like case management, it's not just going to address one thing. It's going to be some sort of intervention that is addressing all of those root cause social determinants of health, sort of like Maslow's hierarchy. You're going to look at, do they have food? Do they have shelter? In substance abuse, we would always start with, you know, get clean for 30 days, and then we'll work on the psychological aspects. Like there's always a level at which you start. So I mean, you're asking the question of the ages, right? Like, where do we start unraveling these problems? But when we're working with the individuals, we usually start with an approach where we're looking at these social determinants, these health determinants, and addressing. That's where community partners coming together collectively. So hospitals, law enforcement, social work, substance abuse, everyone working on one client together. So that wraparound care is really the key to moving forward. And then having, you know, legislation and systems to back that up. So if we can, from a systems level, build in those, just from an early childhood, I'm always going to root for, like, you know, early Head Start where they support the families and build those resilience factors early. So we have those safety nets for families so people don't go down these paths in the first place. But okay, just had to put that plug in there.
Thanks. Erica?
Amy, so glad to work with you. Thank you for the presentation. You know, I think we talked about this with the the Justice Project, the Stakeholder Advisory Group, like where does some work start and end? And I remember Dan Hamill and I talking about this in the Stakeholder Advisory Committee as we were developing the Justice Project of, that early childhood development component, the Healthy Children's Fund, and should that be sort of considered in this? And I think we sort of as a group decided that might be too far upstream to be thinking about this jail population, even though those are, of course, connected, as Amy shared, right? But I do think like it would be really, I think, interesting and helpful for us to get some shared agreement around like what part of the lifespan do we want to look at in order to be able to assess whether or not we're having an impact. And I also think, for example, like the GRACE program is life-changing for GRACE clients, but it's not going to show us significant population health changes when we look at 232,000 residents of Whatcom County, right? So also like how in the circles, the concentric circles that Amy showed that went from sort of program participant at the core all the way out to population health outcomes, like how far in those circles do we want to be able to look in order to assess the effectiveness of the programs and services, knowing that we're talking about in a lot of ways a pretty small percentage of the Whatcom County population. So in these interventions, are we going to impact the entire population, or is it good enough to go one step in and see whether or not we're impacting those that have some sort of connection to the criminal justice system? So anyway, this is why public health is so fun and interesting, because it's endlessly complicated and there's no right answers, but it also creates a lot of opportunity for various points of views and potentially some conflict around where we stop and start our interventions and our assessment and evaluation.
Thank you. So I don't want to cut this off. And I also wanted to honor our time. So Tasha, I'm going to suggest or request you just hold that. Go ahead. And we're going to, because we need the 10 minutes at the end of our meeting for public comment. So if you can just stay with us for a little bit and we'll try and see if we can squeeze both in. So our next meeting is coming up on December 19th from 2 o'clock to 4. You're all welcome to come back for that one too. And we're going to be getting into this whole conversation that Amy just gave us a great teaser for, which is what do you think would demonstrate successful progress on the Justice Project implementation plan? That's yeah. So now we've got public comment for 10 minutes. And so first I'd like to ask if there's any member who is not part of the JPOP who had something that they wanted to share, and then we'll see if we can get Tasha's question in as well. So any person who's a guest here today who would like to speak? Okay, hearing none, then Tasha, do you want to go ahead? We'll use
I'm assuming, and Peter, this is kind of directed to you, when I was listening in on the steering committee, you were talking about limiting it to 3 primary parts of the justice implementation plan as our focus. Is that referencing this specifically?
No. That is more for the whole of the IPRTF. And I think we're still, or at least I'm still trying to navigate exactly what JPOP is going to be doing. And it is responsible to the entirety of the implementation plan. So while the rest of the IPRTF does need to focus its energies, still trying to figure that out here. And happy to talk with you offline about any questions you have. So thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're figuring out. We have it in our charter. Now it's what will it look like in process or in practice, because the JPOP is one part of an overall system and an overall conversation. So who else would like to speak? Anyone who didn't get a chance yet today? Okay, anybody who's already had a chance but has other questions or comments?
Can I just take a moment?
Yeah, please.
Amy, I loved your presentation. It's so helpful to have an overview of the results-based accountability model for us all to be getting familiar with the language and the concepts. And so thank you for that. And I also just want to kind of put your minds at ease. So this is a new committee. We are all coming into this, fresh. Some of you were involved in the Stakeholder Advisory Committee and development of the implementation plan, but most of you were not. And so we are, I want to just maybe put your minds at ease by saying that this group is here to, in our charter, and it says these things, we're here to participate in development of an evaluation plan to measure progress and results. And we are going to receive and monitor data being compiled by others. The executive's office, the health department, and other people in programs that are providing services and that are relevant to the implementation plan. We, JPOP members, are not going to be collecting that data. We are going to be reflecting on data that is brought to us, and we're going to be chiming in on development of the evaluation plan, but it's not on us as a group to develop that entire evaluation plan by ourselves. We are one of a group. We are all part of an effort that is beyond this group. So hopefully that if you felt any anxiety about like, oh my gosh, are we going to do this whole thing of coming up with a model ourselves? We're not. But we will be an important part of that work.
Thank you, Marty. Well spoken. Okay, anything else? All right, let's give once again, Amy, wonderful job. Thank you so much for taking the time to put together such a great presentation for us. I think it really set us off to a good start. And everybody, we will see you in December. So thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Good work.